One. Good evening, everyone. If I am audible, please write in the chat box. Good evening, everyone. If I am audible, please write in the chat box so that we begin this session. And also, any of you have did the homework problem, please write in the chat box. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. We are going to begin this session. So today we are going to covering the loop part and the function part. Okay, today we are going to cover first of all for loop. Afterwards we will discuss about a while loop. Then afterwards we will discuss break. Then continue, and afterwards we will discuss about what is function and what are the different scopes in the function or a variable having. And at last, we will discuss about a lambda function. So these are the topics which we are going to cover in this session. So let's begin with the first topic. The first topic is for loop. Okay. If we talk about in Python, we use for loop for iterating some sequence of items. Like I want to iterate from 10 times. Let's say I want to iterate for the 10 times, or we can say for the 20 times. Then I will not going to write the entire code for the 10 times. Okay. Instead of this, I will use the for loop part. And where we can use the for loop, we can use at list, tuple, string, even for a range of number, let's say. And if we talk about the syntax is quite simple. First of all, we will write for, afterwards we will write item, and item is basically a variable here. Okay, this is a variable. And afterwards we will say in sequence. And now sequence can be anything, like it can be your list, tuple, string, or a range of numbers. Afterwards you will write the code that is going to be executed in the loop. Okay, is it clear to everyone? Please write in the chat box if it is clear or not. Then we will see the example for that. Sir, start the class. Okay. Okay. Let's see the example for that. Okay. Now let's see the example for this. Like I'm giving a list for this. Let's say we have numbers which is equals to a list containing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, afterwards 10. We have a list of numbers which is storing or which having numbers from 1 to 10. Now afterwards I will write a for loop. For afterwards I will give a variable which can be any. So I will write let's say num. Afterwards in which sequence I want to iterate, that is numbers, obviously numbers. Then afterwards I will give the indentation. Then I will print, let's print the number. Okay, let's run this part. Here you will see, here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is going to be printed on the screen. Okay, now in the same way, let's run one more for loop. This is the first for loop. Now let's run for the second for loop. For that again, I giving a same variable name in numbers. Now in which I am taking one if part. If afterwards I will say I want to print even numbers. Then if I divide any number by 2, if it is getting a remainder 0, then the number is divisible by 2. So I will write num modulo 2 should be equal to 0. If it is true, print no. Otherwise, not. Otherwise, not. For that, I will not write any code because for not divisible by 2, I don't want to print on the screen. Okay, now I have written it. Let's run it. Now here you can see 2, 4, 6 and 8 and 10 is going to be printed on the screen. Okay, these are the number which is divisible by 2. Now we have seen how to use for loop, and in between how can we use if part or else or even elif. Please quickly write in the chat box if it is clear or not, so that we will continue with the second part. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, now we have one more example. Let's see that also. Like we have one more function, that is range. We can use, instead of these list, we can use a range as well. Like I will write range, afterwards let's 1 to 11. Okay, why I'm writing 11? Because you need to understand the last number is not going to be included in the range. The last number will be excluded from the range. That's why I'm writing instead of 10, that is 11. Now I'm going to print the same way, print num. Okay, in this case also I will get 1 to 10. Okay, let's run it. Now you can see clearly we get the same result if we use our range function as well. So if you know the range from where to where you have to execute, then you can use the range function as well. But if you don't know about the range, but you know the sequence from where the numbers or iteration will be happen, then you can use it also. Okay, let's move to the next looping factor, that is while loop. Now we have discussed it. Now we have while loop. Let's discuss it as well. Now if we talk about the while loop have a syntax like this. First of all, we need to write the while. Afterwards, we need to write the condition. Then afterwards, we are going to write the, you can say, code for that. Okay, here also it is written while loop is used for repetitively execute a block, which is know how many times it's going to be printed. Like condition, whenever the condition is true, it is going to be executed that block. Otherwise, it is not going to be execute that block. And we have seen the syntax here. Now here you know this condition will be in the form of Boolean expression. Okay, why is it so? Because we know Boolean expression always give the answer in the form of true or false. Okay, remember this part. Now afterwards it is written if the condition is true, then the code is going to be executed, that we have discussed it. And till the condition is true, it is going to be executed. Whenever it encounter any false, then it is going to be stopped there. Okay, now let's see example for this as well. Now let's see here example for that. Let's write a for loop here. We have discussed for loop. Now we are going to discuss the while loop here. Now let's take the example for the while loop as well. Let's say we have a variable that is 1. Okay, afterwards I am saying execute while loop till, let's say, 5. Like I want to print from 1 to 5. Okay, that case I will say while, afterwards I will say if I is lesser than 6. If I is lesser than 6, please print on the screen, otherwise do not print. Print I. Okay, now there is one more catch here, that you need to be update your variable. Here variable is 1. If I don't update it, it is going to be execute for infinite times. How is it so? I will show you. Before that, let's comment it out first. Okay, now let's run this part. You will understand why we need to be update our variable. If I don't, then it is going to be printed infinite times. Here you can see as well, it is printing again and again, again and again. Okay, so we need to update here. How we, first of all, stop it. Okay, now we need to be update. So I want to update my variable from 1, like 1 afterwards 2. Then I will say I equals to I plus 1. I can write this as well, or I can do what I can do here. I can write I equals, or I will write I plus equals to 1. Okay, it is also correct. It is also correct for here. Both are the correct syntax. You can use this or you can use this. Both are correct. Now let's run this part. Now here you can see we got the answer from 1 to 5. Now let's write from 1 to 10. Now we can write simply 1 to 10. Now let's write a code for printing odd numbers. For that we will say here while loop and I should be lesser than 10. Now afterwards I will say before printing I will check. Whether the number is not divisible by 2 or not. Like modulo 2 is not equal to 0, then that case you need to print it, because I want to print odd numbers. That case print I, otherwise don't. Okay, now let's okay, we need to update as well. For that we need to update. Let's I plus equals to 1. Okay, now it's correct. Let's run this part. Now here you okay, we didn't get the answer which we desired. Why is it so? Because the variable I is more than 11. That's why it is not execute this one. For this we need to do one thing, that we need to initialize with again I equals to 1. Okay, now it will run. Now here you can see we got the desired answer. First of all, the same thing. Afterwards, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay. I hope it's also clear to everyone. Is it clear to everyone? Please write in the chat box. I'm waiting for your response. Okay. Now let's discuss about break. Now, what is break? Break basically controls the flow. Break is used to control the flow of the statement. Like we have a flow. Okay, we have let's say loop which is continuously executing. But whenever we encounter break, whenever we encounter any break statement which is going to terminate the loop at the immediately. Like whenever we encounter any break statement, it is going to be terminate our loop. That means like we have break, then it is going to out of the loop. Now it is also written here, it is used to immediately terminate our loop. Okay, like where we can use for in a for loop or in a while loop. We will discuss about the continue after the next slide. Before that, we are discussing break. Break is basically used whenever we want to out from a loop. Then we can, like when we want, like whenever we get our satisfied answer or desired answer, then we don't want to execute it unnecessarily. Then we can use a break statement, which is going to terminate our loop immediately. So let's see the example for this as well. Okay, now we are going to discuss about the break one. Break. Now for break, let's say we have I equals to 0 and I equal to 0. Afterwards, I am saying while, and afterwards, let's say I want to execute till 11 or basically 10. Then I will say till I is lesser than 11, and I want to print, let's say uh, whenever I encounter any number, let's say number is 6 or let's say 7. Whenever I get the number 7, we need to stop the loop. So I will say while afterwards I is less than 11, then we are going to say if I if I equal to 7, that case we need to print the loop is terminated. Okay, basically we will say, or basically we can say, let's write it. Okay, for that we need to write a break statement here as well. Break, and here I will write the loop is terminated. Okay, loop is terminated. Afterwards, it is not going to run it, and I will update the I value. Before that, I will print. For that, I will print I, then I will update it. Let's update it by 1. Okay, we have done. Now, if we run this part, first of all, we'll run it. Then afterwards, I will remove the break as well. Then we will say what is the output for this. Okay, now let's run this part. Now here you can see, okay, we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then afterwards, the loop is terminated. Afterwards, the loop is terminated. Why is it so? Let's discuss it. Now we know I is 0. We know I is 0. Now I is less than 11. Yes, I is less than 11. Then we will check. I is equal to 7? Not. Then we are not going to execute this block. Then we will print it. Then afterwards I will update it by 1. I will update it by 1. Okay. Now afterwards I will again check. Is I is less than 11? Yes, I is less than 11. Now is it I is 7? No. Then we again skip this part. Again we will skip this part. Okay, again we are going to skip this part. Then we will check whether afterwards we will print. Now we need to print. So we are printing I. I is 1. Then we will update it. Now update it by 2. Now afterwards again we will check. I is less than 11. Yes, I is less than 11. Then or I is 7. No. Now this will happen 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6. Afterwards we have 7. Now I is equal to 7. Yes, we know I is equal to 7. That means we need to execute this block. Then we are going to execute this block. First of all, we will print this. Then afterwards we will encounter a break. This break will terminate this loop. Will terminate this loop. Okay, if I don't use this break, then it is going to print all these values 7, 8, 9, 10. Till 10 it is going to be printed, but we have used the break one. That's why we are we are coming out from the loop in this case. Okay, please quickly write in the chat box, is it clear to everyone or not? Guys, quickly write in the chat box, is it clear to everyone or not? Okay, now let's discuss about the continue. Now, if we talk about a continue, continue is quite different from the break one. Continue basically skip the current iteration, but don't terminate the loop. Okay, remember this part. Continue, skip the current iteration, but do not terminate the loop. That means we will continue with the next iteration, but we are not going further with the current iteration. Now it is also written the same thing, that we used to skip the current iteration of a loop like for loop or while loop and continue with the next iteration. Now continue statement is useful whenever we want to skip, because it skip the current iteration, and but it is going to be execute the rest of the loop iterations. Now let's see the example for this as well. Now we are going to continue with continue. Now if we talk about a continue is going to be skip the current iteration but not the entire loop. Now we will again say, let's say we have a list of numbers which is storing 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10, 9 and 10. Okay, afterwards let's say we want to print all the numbers except 5. Okay, I want to skip the 5. Then how I can do? First of all, I will run the for loop. Then we have having a variable afterwards in numbers. Then afterwards I will say if num is equal to 5, then I need to be skip. How I can skip? Just by writing continue. Okay, afterwards I will print num. Okay, now let's run this part. Now here you can see we are skipping the fifth. How I am saying it? Because we haven't print the 5 value. So continue basically skip the current iteration, but break is going to be terminate the entire loop. Okay, I hope you got the difference between break and a continue statement. So quickly write in the chat box. Okay, let's move to the next topic, that is what is function. Now, if we talk about what is function, so function is a block of organized or basically a reusable code which is going to perform any specific, you can say, task or a group of related tasks which is going to be execute for us. So let's take one example for it. Now we know whenever a student buy a pencil, then it is going to ask for the eraser one. Okay, it is going to ask for the eraser, and also what is going to be asked for the, you can say, sharpener. Okay, these three things it is going to be asked by the student which is studying in the primary school. Okay, so we can do one thing, that we can club these three things at once. That means pencil, eraser, and sharpener. So whenever any student asks for it, I will give it this entire block of PES, that is pencil, eraser, and sharpener. Okay, the same way function does. Whenever we know that this certain code of block, we can use it for future references as well, then we can do it by making it a function or a block which is going to be used or done the specific task for us. Now, functions are used to break up large programs. The same way, like we know we have a large project. So for that, we are going to break our up entire our large code in a chunks, and which is, you can say, quite manageable as compared to the large programs. And we can avoid the repeated codes because we are dividing into a chunks which is going to perform a specific task. Whenever we know that this specific task can be done by our previous function, then we can directly call that function. We are not going to write the same code for again and again. And for defining our function, we need to use def as a keyword. So first of all, we will write def as a keyword. Afterwards, we will need to write the function name. Function name. Afterwards, we can pass arguments. Okay. Now afterwards we are providing indentation. Then here you can write a code for it. Here you can write a code for it. I hope the syntax was clear to everyone. That is, we need to use def keyword. Afterwards we can provide a function name. Then afterwards we can pass any arguments if we want. Okay. Now we are taking one example. Let's run this part as well. What is, like, we will write a def, afterwards greet, and we are taking as a name argument. Okay, we are taking argument for this. For this we are going to write it in our code. Okay, we are discussing the function, and here we are taking our def. Afterwards we greet and taking a name as a parameter. Afterwards we are print, but we are printing, just a second, we check it, print, afterwards hello, then we are printing the name. Let's write here hello. Afterwards we will say hello, then afterwards we are saying name, then is added with this. Okay, I hope we have written this. Yes, we have written this. Now we have successfully created our first function. Now afterwards we need to write, or basically we need to call our function. Without calling our function, it is useless. It is useless. Functions need to be called. So what I said, we need to call our function. Without calling it, it is not going to execute it. Now let's call it. So we are calling here, that is greet, our function name. Afterwards I need to pass any argument. We can pass argument, that is code sprint, and here I will give a comment so that you remember that is it is a calling part, calling the function. Okay, now let's run it. Now here you can see it is writing hello code sprint. Okay, I hope it is clear to everyone. If it is clear, please write in the chat box so that we continue with the next topic. Guys, quickly write in the chat box if it is clear. Okay, now just again I'm giving an overview like there is a greet which is a function name that I have told already, and name is a parameter or you can say argument here. Okay, and you can say the function body simply prints. Now this is a function body. This is function body. Now the next topic is variable scope. Now what is a variable scope? Now remember this, every variable having its scope. That means you can say outside the scope the variable is not visible to that function, or you can say block of code. Now what does that mean? We have two variables or we have two types of scope. One is global scope, that is open to everyone, or we can say which is visible to every function, or you can say every code of block. For example, how we can define the global scope? We just need to write it outside every function. If I write it outside the function or basically from any function, then it is going to be a global variable because 10 is executed by any function here. If I write one more function here, def x, and here I will no I x1. Now afterwards I will write print. Here I will say x. Then again I will get here 10, also here 10. Okay, why it is so? Because x is a variable which is a global, which is having a global scope. That means every function can call it or see it. Okay, remember this part. And let's recall this part. Variable scope in Python refers to a region of a program where the variable is accessible, or we can say variable is visible to that function. Sorry, to that, yes, to that function. And in Python, we have two types of variable scope, that is global and local. Now, global variable is defined where we can define outside any function. That means it is going to exist by any function in the program. We will write code for it as well. And let's take the example for the local variable as well. Now, if we talk about a local variable, for local variable, we need to define in a specific function. Here you can see I define this variable in this function. That means this function is only visible to this. That means print y can only access this variable Okay, now if I write here def, let's say we have def ABC, then I will write print y, then it is going to show me an error. Why? Because it is going to say me you are accessing that variable which is having a local, you can say local scope. So it will show me error. Okay, now let's see the example for this, and I need to discuss one more example for the function as well. So we will discuss it before this part. Now let's make one more function here. Let's I will say def. Now I will say power, and I will take 2x comma y. Here I will provide the x raised to the power y. I will return x raised to the power y. For this, I need to write x afterwards giving the exponential operator. This one. Now, we are good to go. Now, afterwards, we need to call this. We need to call this. I will say power. Okay, power. Or basically, I need to store this value. Or let's print it. Just print what power, and let's say we want 2 raised to the power 5. What I'm saying, we we are interested to, okay, we are interested in the 2 raised to the power 5. So I hope you remember that 2 raised to the power 5 is 32. Okay, so we should get the answer for this, that is 32. Now let's see. Now here I will, first of all, I need to clear it. Now here I will write power, and afterwards I will say 2 raised to the power 5. Okay, let's run this part. Now yes, we got the correct answer, that is 32. Now we have seen one more example for this. In this example, we are taking two variables. Now we have covered it this part. Now we need to discuss about the variable which having a global and, you can say, a, what we have, yes, having a local and a global scope. I will write a code, then you need to tell the answer for me. Okay, I am writing that. Now global and the global and local, okay, scope. We need to discuss this part. Now I am writing our code, then you need to tell me the answer. What is the answer for this? Okay, I am writing x equals to, let's say, 10. Then I am saying def, then I will write print, and what, basically print x. I want to print x here. Now afterwards I will say x equals to 5, then print x. Now here we will call this function just by writing print x. Okay, now quickly tell me what is the answer for this. Now I'm giving 1 minute to you think about, and you need to tell the answer for this. And if you are liking this session, please please hit the like button and share with your friends as well. And don't miss next updates. You need to subscribe this channel as well and press the notification button. Please quickly tell me the answer for this. I am waiting for your response. Okay, I am waiting 10 more seconds. Okay, Diksha is saying 5. Now you are saying the right answer, that is 5. Why is it so? Let's discuss it. Now you need to remember priority, which is going to get a more priority here. This variable will get a more priority. That means local variable will always having a high priority than the global one. Okay, remember this part. The local variables having a high priority and global variables having a less priority. That's why, first of all, this print x. X is going to find where I am defined. It will see, yes, I am defined here. So the answer will be 5 here. But if I remove this part, then I will get the answer 10. Okay. Now we are going to get the last topic of today's session, that is lambda function. Okay. Now let's discuss about the lambda function as well. And quickly tell your friends as well. They quickly join this session because we are going to end this session in a while. Now we have lambda function. Now if we talk about a lambda function, it is basically small anonymous function that then can take any number of arguments. Basically ये एक function ही होता है. Just now it is just a function, but which is having a lesser number of, you can say, lines, and can get or can take any number of arguments. Okay, now but can only have one expression. Now what that means, like, we can write it in a single line. We can't use multiple expressions here. We will see it. Like, first of all, we need to write lambda because we are using lambda function. In, you can say, native functions we use def, but here we are going to use a lambda one. Afterwards, arguments. That means what are the arguments you need to pass, like 2, 3, 5, 10, any number of arguments you can pass. Afterwards, you need to pass the expression. That means first of all you pass the arguments, then what are the different, you can say, operation you want to do on them, then you are going to write here. Now lambda function are typically used whenever when we need to simple or one time use function. That means whenever we have a simple functions, or whenever we have a function which is having a specific purpose, or you can say one time use, then we can use a lambda functions. Otherwise we don't use lambda function so extensively. We generally use def functions. Now let's see the example for this as well. Now we are going to write our what we are going to write our lambda function. We can without writing lambda function we can do it, or we need to, like, whenever you can say, whenever we need to write a function, we need to write first of all lambda, then afterwards we are going to write the arguments, afterwards we write the expression. Now let's say I want to add numbers. Add numbers. Okay, I will write here first of all, this is the part for lambda 1. Okay, lambda functions. Now I will write a add numbers, then I will say add numbers equals to what? First of all lambda. Now I need to add two numbers, that means I need to pass two arguments x comma y. Okay, afterwards I need to pass the expression here. Let's pass the expression, that is I need to add x plus y. Okay, that's it. This is our function. Now you can say we have just created one more function here. Addition. We didn't create it. Okay. Here we have created a exponential. Here we have created a addition one, which is a single line. Okay. It will save our time also. Now afterwards, let's print as well. For that, let's simply print it. Okay. Let's print what we want to print, add numbers. Okay, now will we want to pass arguments? Yes, we need to pass arguments here. Okay, why is it so? Because add number is a function here. Add numbers is a function here, which is getting two values x and y, which is getting two values x and y here. Okay, now let's quickly write two numbers, let's say 7 and 9. Okay, now let's quickly run this part. Now we are getting answer is 16. So we have seen how we can use a lambda function as well. First of all, we need to pass a lambda. Afterwards, we need to pass arguments. And at last, we need to pass the expression. Okay, I hope you like this session. I am giving the attendance link to everyone. So mark your attendance quickly. Okay. Now also I need to share this. Okay, I'm ending this session. Bye everyone.